All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore the very blueprint of our sense of self. You know, that constant voice in your head, the part of you that always says, I? We're going to take a look at the architecture of the ego. So, let's kick things off with this killer quote from Bruce Lee. I mean, think about it. Have you ever tried to correct someone only to have them get completely defensive? Or maybe you've been on the other end, and you've felt that sting of being told you're wrong. It's a feeling we all know, and it points to a really fundamental question about ourselves.
Yeah, why are we like this? Why does being corrected so often feel like a personal attack? Why do we dig our heels in, even when we have a sneaking suspicion that the facts might not be on our side? Well, the answer lies deep within the very structure of our identity.
Here's the thing, that defensiveness, it's not really about protecting the truth. It's about protecting us, our sense of self. When our beliefs get challenged, our ego goes into full-on red alert to protect its two most valuable assets, our self-esteem and our social identity.
And this is where things get messy. See, the ego is absolutely terrified of being wrong, of looking foolish. So what should be a simple conversation, an exchange of ideas, suddenly becomes this high-stakes battle. The goal is no longer about learning or finding the truth. No, the goal becomes winning, all to protect that fragile sense of who we think we are.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain and meet the culprit behind all this drama, right? What is this ego anyway? We're going to demystify that little voice in your head, take a look at what it is, and even see where it lives inside the brain.
So, what is it? Simply put, the ego is your inner narrator. It's the voice that's constantly going, I think this, I feel that, I am this kind of person. It's the storyteller that's always weaving together your past memories and your future worries to create the main character in the story of your life, you. And get this narrator isn't just some vague concept. It actually has a physical address in your brain. It's called the default mode network, or DMN for short. This is the exact network that lights up when your mind wanders. It's the engine behind your daydreams, your late-night anxieties, your rehashing of old conversations. It is literally the architect building the story of I inside your head.
Now, don't get me wrong, the DMN is an amazing tool. It helps us plan and learn from our mistakes. But here's the catch. In our crazy modern world, it's almost always overactive. So instead of being a useful tool that we can pick up and put down, it's become this relentless master, constantly spinning stories of fear, of not being good enough, and trapping us inside its narrative.
All right, so we've established the ego is a storyteller. But what kind of story is it telling? Well, it tells a story of stability, of a solid, continuous self living in a solid, predictable world. But what if that entire story is based on an illusion?
This ancient wisdom from Heraclitus just nails it, doesn't it? Everything, and I mean everything, is constantly changing. The river is different from moment to moment, and so are you. The ego hates this idea. It absolutely fights against it, because its whole story depends on having a stable, unchanging hero. You know, just think about it like this for a second. We look at a table and we see a solid object, but physics tells us it's really just a cloud of buzzing atoms. We feel like we're the same person we were yesterday, but our bodies are constantly replacing billions of cells. Our perception of stability is just a mental shortcut.
And look, that's not a bad thing. We actually need this simplified map to get around, to function in our daily lives without being completely overwhelmed. But the danger comes when we forget that it's just a map, a crude approximation, and we start to mistake it for the actual territory.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. If our sense of I, our separate, stable self, is just a story constructed by the ego, what happens when we stop reading it? What lies on the other side of that narrative?
Well, that experience has a name: ego dissolution. It's that profound, sometimes jarring moment when the feeling of being a separate person inside a body looking out at the world just evaporates. The boundary that you thought separated you from everything else, it disappears.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds terrifying. The death of I. It sounds like the end, like total annihilation. And from the ego's perspective, it is. But what actually happens when that storyteller in your head finally goes silent?
When the narrator stops narrating, what's left? Is it just darkness, an empty void? The answer, it turns out, is a profound and incredibly beautiful no. What's left isn't a void. It's everything else. It's the raw fabric of reality itself, without the story layered on top.
It's a state of pure presence, of just being a silent witness to what is. It's this deep, undeniable sense of connection to everything and everyone, and it's all held together by a feeling of, well, a feeling of love.
Now, I know this all might sound a little out there, a bit abstract, but there are actually very real, very concrete ways to explore this for yourself, well-worn paths that can take you from just understanding the blueprint to actually living the experience.
Let's break down 3 of the most powerful pathways. First, there's meditation. Think of it like going to the gym for your brain, training it to quiet down that chatty default mode network. Then there's psychotherapy, which is like detective work for the soul, helping you uncover and deconstruct the ego's oldest, most limiting stories. And finally, there are psychedelics, which in the right context can act like a circuit breaker, temporarily shutting down the DMN to give you a direct, unfiltered glimpse of this interconnected reality.
So, it's really important to get this straight. The goal here isn't to destroy the ego. We need it to pay our bills and remember our friends' names. The journey is all about transformation. It's about softening those rigid, defensive walls, making them more flexible, and allowing a more authentic, connected version of yourself to shine through.
So, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. Knowing that the I you've always known is really just a story, a useful but limited model of reality, how might that change the way you see yourself, the way you see your beliefs, and maybe even your place in this whole wild universe? The blueprint is in your hands now.